Hello, I'm Cherry Potts. I run Arachne Press, and this is one of several films we're making to celebrate Arachne's 8th anniversary, which is technically the 28th of July, but we're actually celebrating it throughout August. 8 years being kind of important to a press that's named after a spider. And today I'm going to talk to you about this book, Mosaic of Air, which is written by me, and this is actually the starting point of Arachne. This was due to be republished, and the publisher wanted to change the title, and I didn't want her to, and we had a bit of a falling out. And then I had a look at the accounts and the other book of mine that she'd published, which had been out about 3 years at that point, and I hadn't seen a penny from. She owed me about, well, let's say quite a lot of money. So I asked for the money, and the money was not forthcoming. So then I said, right, I'll have the books that are left. There must be some, and there were. And she said yes, and they never turned up. And I phoned the distributor, and the distributor said, no, we weren't asked to send them to you, we were asked to destroy them. And I kind of lost it. And I thought, I could get really angry about this, and I could sue her, and I could do this, and I could do that. And then I had a look, and I thought, there's absolutely no point in doing that. Why don't I do something a bit more constructive? And as I was about to be made redundant for the second time in 5 years, I thought, do it myself. Publish it myself. She's in breach of contract. I can do what I darn well please. But I didn't want to be a self-publisher, and also I wanted people to talk to. I didn't want to be working on my own. So I thought, okay, I will set up a publishing house. And we will go into more detail on that when we talk with Katie Darby about the Liars books. But this was really the starting point of Arachne. And Arachne is called Arachne because of one of the stories in here, which is called Arachne's Daughters, which Alix and I will read to you later. But this was originally published in, goodness me, 1992. And a lot had changed in the meantime, and I did think some of these stories don't actually make sense anymore. But then I thought, well, they do somewhere in the world. Poland at the time was a particularly hot topic, so I thought, do it anyway. And it is 16 short stories. They're all stories about lesbians. I am a lesbian. It's what I was interested in writing about at the time. I've branched out a little bit since. And it's a wide-ranging collection. There's some science fiction, there's quite a bit of fantasy, there's some myth retelling, there's some, at the time, contemporary stuff. There's a thriller. Some of them are very short, some of them are very long. And I loved writing these stories. It took me probably about 10 years. I wrote them very slowly, very gradually, sort of finding my way. I had a couple of stories published in anthologies before this was published, and the publisher who published the anthologies published this, largely because she had at some point rashly said to me, I wish everybody wrote as well as you do. I get sent so much rubbish. And I took this as a challenge, and I sent her a story a week for ages, gradually working through my bottom drawer of stories and editing them and sending them to her, wearing her down until she published it. And I don't know why she was thinking about republishing it, but I took that as a sign that somebody other than me thought it was worth publishing them again, so went for it. The cover, which is rather gorgeous, refers to one of the stories, which is called Lady's Pleasure, and is about the rekindling of a romance in an old people's home. And the cover's by Melina Traub, and we found her through doing a competition, not actually for this book, or was it? Yes, I think it was. It was for This and Weird Lies, which we were publishing the same day. And I wrote to every single artists collective and designers group and things I could find on internet, and said, would you like to have a go at this? We'll pay for whoever wins, and we'll put up your pictures on our website for the public to vote on. And I love this cover. It's really clever. The band was warming up, getting adventurous. Jessica made to move back to the safety of the seats, leaving the floor to the few mixed couples, the increasing number of younger, more daring women. Grace kept hold of her hand, refusing to move. Jessica smiled, one of her evil grins. If Grace Carew Petrullo wanted to dance the tango, then she was more than willing to give it a go. She was glad she'd warmed up with the other dances first. Her back wasn't as supple as it had once been. Grace felt the gentle, firm touch of Jessica's hand on the small of her back. My God, she thought, is this what I waited nearly 60 years for? Is this it? She was disappointed. When all was said and done, it was only dancing, however risque. This was not the dangerous, delightful, desirable moment she had always imagined. All she had ever wanted to do was dance, with Vincent, with Jack, with Rosa, but first of all, and most of all, with Jessica Markham. And here she was, dancing. There was definitely something missing. Oh, it feels wonderful to be dancing like this again, Jessica thought. Invigorating, exciting, daring. She whirled Grace's portly figure about and started to stalk towards the doors of the lounge. Grace crushed to her. She laughed. It was ludicrous, really. Making an exhibition of herself. That's what the headmistress had called it. She'd done more than that when she danced with Rosa Neal. Much more than that. Even that school wouldn't have expelled her for just dancing. Jessica was caught up in the memory of it. She had been dancing like this, cheered on by the laughing horde of girls, dancing close and hot and excited, and she had danced Rosa out of the school hall, up the stairs and into her bed. Rosa had been tall and willowy, not stodgy like Grace, but actually Grace danced better. Grace danced beautifully. She liked dancing with her. Jessica suddenly noticed that she had lost the lead. Grace had usurped it and was leading her firmly, gently, towards the doors. She looked down at Grace, who was looking extremely determined. Well, she thought, smothering her surprise, enjoying having her bluff called. She allowed Grace to bend her protesting back into a swoop down to the floor. It alarmed her a little. She wasn't sure she would make it back up. Another shower of beads cascaded off her dress. Jessica laughed. They reached the doors. Grace pushed through them and they swung closed, muffling the music. Grace let go of Jessica's hands, a little out of breath, a little out of her depth. So what happens now? She asked anxiously. More dancing, Jessica said. Next morning, Grace's bed was full of little glass beads. People often say to you, when you're a writer and you do readings, where'd you get your ideas from? Mostly I can't remember. That one I remember. It was a radio programme. Michael Aspel, I think, interviewing old ladies, who knows what about. And one of them was complaining that when they had dances in their old people's home, there weren't enough men to go round, and sometimes they had to dance with a woman. And I thought, and your problem with that is? So that's where that story came from. I also own the dress, 1920s black chiffon, crepe de chine, I think, dress covered in little beads. Anyway, can't get into that anymore, so you're not going to get a look at that. So this book is not on sale because it's already reduced to £5 ever since our 5th anniversary. So you can buy it for £5. Total bargain. Help us celebrate Arachne's 8th anniversary. Thanks for listening. There'll be a whole reading of a whole story in a minute with Alix. Okay, bye. So this is Arachne's Daughters, which is from Mosaic of Air, which I wrote. Alix here is my wife and fellow spider enthusiast, and she's here because this is a two-hander. And Alix is going to read The Archivist, and I'm going to read The Spider. Alix.
Arachne's Daughters. The following document, which was found in our archives recently, is a transcript of the talk given to the inaugural meeting of the Lesbo-Arachnid League of Friendship on the 29th of February 1992, Old Calendar. It is published here for the first time to commemorate the 13th anniversary of the Revolution. Our recently retired archivist, who attended that first meeting, remembers that the speaker made a dramatic entrance, abseiling onto the podium. Unfortunately, due to her size, much of the audience was unable to see her once she had landed, owing to the over-exuberance of the floral arrangements.
Good evening, ladies, Madam Chairwoman. Before I start my talk, I would just like to thank you for coming. My subject for this evening is closer cooperation between lesbians and arachnids. Primarily, I would like to discuss with you the mutual benefits of closer cooperation. I shall start by putting forward my reasons for asking for your help, and then I'll dispel some of the myths surrounding our culture, in order to help you to contemplate the closer links I advocate. Now, we all know we have a common enemy in men. I hope I don't need to explain why. Good, I see a few nodding heads. Some of you may feel uncomfortable with some of the things I have to say, but please bear with me. Many women have a deep and abiding loathing of spiders, as you call us. I accept that, but I want to explain why this paranoia exists. To do that, I will have to explain arachnophobia, to show it to you as the persecution of spider kind that it is. You think witches were persecuted, right, but that was centuries ago. And cats, certainly, but they are pampered pets now. How many people do you know who even pass the time of day with a spider? I shall embarrass you now, I'm afraid. Stand up. Anyone who can honestly say she has never killed a spider. I thought so. Feeling uncomfortable yet? What is the problem? Do we have too many legs? Is that it? All the more to run away with, I assure you. So some of us are poisonous. I agree, but tell me, have you ever met anyone in these climes who has been made even mildly ill by a spider bite? We don't pose much of a threat, do we? Now, compare that with the number of spiders you personally injured, deliberately or otherwise. We only bite people to protect ourselves. We are friendly, peace-loving creatures who wish to live in harmony with other species, with certain exceptions like men. We are on your side, sisters, and we have plenty to offer. You will have been told that we are devious murderers, entrapping innocent prey. Well, yes, we are. So what? I can't buy flies shrink-wrapped at the local supermarket, and I bet you rather I ate that blue bottle buzzing against the window than leading it to tread puke into your next meal, yes? Sorry if I'm carping on, but I really get annoyed by this sort of petty, dishonest prejudice. No one is asking you to eat insects after all. All of these distortions of fact have been foisted on you by men. Make no mistake about it. There has been a deliberate attempt to drive a wedge between us. Unfortunately, it has been a great success. Our only good press, where men are concerned, is that old chestnut about Robert the Bruce. Winning the battle after seeing the spider remake her web each time it broke, thus explaining to him the usefulness of perseverance. Well, you can forget about that persecutor of spiders. He said the wind was responsible for breaking that web. Nonsense. He broke it. He was bored, and he liked to torment things, especially small, helpless, earnest things. So one of our sisters joins the Hall of Fame because of her courage and tenacity in the face of the deliberate destruction of her home and livelihood. Does this sound familiar? I'm sure you have one or two heroines who fit this mould. Someone who stuck to her principles and struggled on in the face of persecution of the people who now praise her. Joan of Arc springs to mind. I'm sure there are others. Well, so much for our Robbie, who learnt to persist and to lie about how he came by the idea. Had he bothered to ask, I'm sure that nameless heroine would have given him the same advice and not spent all morning remaking her web. You may wonder how a culture that does not have anything that you would recognise as a literature remembers these events. Spiders have a racial memory, a bit like instinct, but more refined. We remember everything. Not that you generally let us close enough to get to benefit from our advice, our accumulated wisdom. Have you ever noticed the way your resident spider hunches up in fear when you come into the room, plays dead until she has the chance to use her legs to run for cover? Why? Because she is afraid. She's hoping you won't put her out in the rain or let the cat play with her or just step on her. She isn't going to hang around and give you good advice under those circumstances, now is she? Which is a pity. She could become your best friend if you only let her. Try saying hello next time you see Susanna in the garden or Babette scaling your cooker. You might be pleasantly surprised. We can be quite cuddly. Which I suppose brings us on to sex and black widows. Now, this is one of the areas that members of your species seem to find particularly difficult, although I can't for the life of me understand why. I would like to clear up one misunderstanding. All spiders eat other spiders, apart from the vegetarian ones. Don't look so shocked, madam. Your species has been known to do it too. I mean, if you don't have the sense to steer clear of your neighbours when they're hungry, you take a chance. It's quite simple. It doesn't happen so very often. There are codes we use, a bit like musical doorbells. One taps out a message on the threads. I am not dinner. And if you're in luck, the lady of the house will tell you which threads to avoid stepping on. Of course, copulation makes the female spider very hungry. So any male runs the risk of being eaten after the act, or if he's very juicy, before. To be honest, I don't know why your heterosexual sisters don't do the same. No male of either species are the slightest use except for procreation. Our eons of experience have taught us the most effective way to deal with all that childcare nonsense. I hatch thousands of the little monsters each time. They get a parachute each, and off they go. Pioneers in the exploration of the world. Did you know that spiders are always the first colonists on newly formed volcanic islands? It's true. And a great many die in the attempt. I expect there to be spiders on the moon shortly, if they haven't got there already. However, I digress. I was explaining how men have conned you into being frightened of us. Let me tell you about Arachne. She is supposed to have been a human, a very skilled spinner and weaver. So far so good. She is also supposed to have been proud and boastful. I think uppity would be a good word to describe Arachne. So this clever weaver challenges Athene, you remember Athene, to a contest to see who is the best weaver, loses and hangs herself. Then Athene is supposed to have turned her into a spider. Now, can you believe anyone would be so stupid? I don't believe it, personally. No one could expect to surpass a goddess at anything. And I would have thought Athene would have been pleased a woman was so good. So why would Athene have accepted the challenge, if indeed the challenge was ever made? This myth was invented by, you guessed it, men. They wanted you to think that being a spider was a step down from being a woman and a punishment for being too clever. This served a twofold purpose, preventing you from taking pride in anything you do, even the things they expect you to be good at, and discouraging you from associating with spiders. In fact, Arachne was always a spider, and a symbol of womanly virtues and strengths. Strengths such as tenacity, and courage, and pride. Arachne was so popular with human females that men wanted to find a way of destroying her cult. They even went to the trouble of changing the calendar to lose the month named for her. I bet they wish they could have changed the moon's turning too to make it fit their 12 months. Nice try, fellas. Forgot something though, didn't they? How many Cancers and Scorpios are there in this audience? Greetings, cousins. So, now you know at least some of the truth about spiders and why and how you have been lied to. I hope you appreciate that this disinformation has resulted in centuries of misunderstanding and that we, the Arachnids, have a lot to offer you, the lesbians. Listen to the spider when she tells you the watchwords of all Arachnids, the wisdom that is the basis of our civilization. Remember as you listen that our civilization exists, nay thrives, despite horrendous losses from centuries of persecution. The watchwords of the Arachnids are these: be self-sufficient, never despair at failure, work towards perfection, be proud, and most important of all, where males are concerned, avoid them. But if that proves impossible, remember they can be a useful source of protein. Hear, sisters, and learn. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you. Good night.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
And if anybody noticed the original date, this was written a long time ago. We're still waiting. Thank you for listening.